If there's something that has been bothering you since a long time, something that does not seem to go away no matter how hard you try, I think you should try therapy. And in these times when going out is not your best option, then remote therapy from highly qualified and experienced clinical psychologists is what you need. Log on to www.mentep.com and start your journey towards a better headspace today. Again, that is www.mentep.com. Start your journey towards a better headspace.
You might work as hard as anybody else, but if you don't leverage the right points, then you might not scale up like the others do.
Is Clubhouse going to kill podcasts?
Do I double down on Clubhouse, which is a new platform? Do I want to give that much time to this? Will it even last that long?
Like, my biggest problem with Clubhouse is that I cannot go and be serious on there.
Clubhouse is the heights of social strata.
What do you think is the future of podcasting? So
Fair.
tell me this. What do you do when the cameras are shut?
Actually, if you had asked me this question even a couple of years ago, I would have said I consume a lot of content, I do all of that. In recent times, it's been consuming a lot of books. I've been reading a lot. I've just been trying to switch off from digital devices, and I found that getting a book or just something on my Kindle makes sense. To spend about an hour every day reading. I do that. Spend a lot of time with try to spend as much time as possible with my daughter. She found a weird thing to do today with playing with post-its, and she had a lot of fun with post-its today. So just do that and just like regular stuff. But when cameras are off, mics are off, just try to switch off as much as possible. Very tough for someone like me who genuinely loves to consume content, but video has gone down for me now. It's a lot more podcasts, a lot more books. Books have actually really scaled up the last 6 months at least.
Yeah, even for me, like not exactly books. I've been trying to read books, but audio has certainly gone up in every sense. Now, I mean, I don't watch a lot of videos. I just listen to podcasts or listen to music. So I think
it's also because we spend so much time in front of screens, right? We spend so much time, like everything is around the screen now. So you're very happy when there's something that doesn't require you to stare at a screen, and you kind of just take that as a good way to have a break.
I also walk a lot. So I'm like always have my earphones plugged in, and I'm listening to something or the other while walking in. So I was stalking your LinkedIn as a podcast researcher. I found the term accidental entrepreneur there. Why do you call yourself that?
So here's the thing, right? When we started Glitch in 2009, this whole being an entrepreneur thing wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And we didn't really set out to start a company. I mean, neither me nor Rohit sat down and said, oh, we want to be entrepreneurs. We were literally, so we were working in Channel V at that point of time. I'd been doing the reality TV rounds for a while. It was an MTV before that. He'd been doing a lot of promo, for Channel V. And we just genuinely wanted to try out stuff. We said, let's just quit and see what we can do, which is fun, which is in the digital space, and just explore that. So it wasn't an entrepreneur. We didn't set out to be entrepreneurs. We became entrepreneurs accidentally when someone who still works at Glitch and wrote to us and said, guys, do you want an intern? And we're like, oh, and once you get an intern, you suddenly become a company, right? So till then, I think it was just like two guys just doing stuff. But did we have a business plan? And we did none of those. So that's why I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, primarily because I just feel like I kind of fell into this and learned stuff along the way. But in hindsight, it's one of the best things that I did.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same path as you now. I mean, I started my platform a year ago, and now we're planning to build a whole team around it, because we're also planning to speed things up a little bit, so that so one part is going to be taken care of a team by a team. Now one part will take care.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been a podcaster since making a podcast was cool. Tell me about that. Tell me about your story with podcasts. How did that come to your mind? Because
so I actually I wasn't a podcast listener, because I've generally had I have, and I still do have an issue with attention.
Hmm.
A person who gets distracted easily. I'm a perfect person for the internet, right? I'm like, take me onto Instagram, show me some reels, take me on Twitter. Perfect person, because I need to scroll through. I can't stick onto one thing for too long. So I struggled to read books for ages, and now I've been a full convert on the other side. So podcast kind of happened to me. I used to listen to one or two, and because authors who I might have come across, like Adam Grant, Scott Galloway, they were part of some podcasts. Occasionally listen to what they were putting out, but I actually ended up guesting on a few podcasts. I was on the Filter Coffee podcast's pilot. I was in a live episode recording for Simplified, and just one thing led to another, and me and the guys at IBM had a chat, and they said, "Do you want to host one?" And I never considered my voice to be one for audio. I always thought I innately. So I have always mumbled. I speak a lot more clearly now at most times. But even if you ask anybody who I was in college with, they will tell you that Varun mumbled his way through college, because any presentation, anything I would do, I would just go, and not for any other sake. I would just generally speak a lot faster than I should. I would only highlight slowly the words that I wanted highlighted. It was, I don't know if it was a tactic or anything else, but I worked on making my voice slow as much as possible, and that's really helped. But again, accidentally became a podcaster. Seems to be a growing trend in life. And yeah, so I just started. I said, okay, what would be fun for me to listen to, and more importantly, what would have been interesting for a young me to listen to when I was starting off, when I was in college, etc. And that's how I kind of set that first, I would say, platform up for what I would want to create, and that's how the show started.
Can we say that your life has been a journey of happy accidents?
Oh, I totally happy accidents, bizarre accidents. Like I've just stumbled through life. I've luckily been surrounded by really smart people. And I've just been able to say, okay, I'm going to support you guys in the stuff you don't want to focus on. And I've just done that, and I've moved through life. And on the other side, I feel that, sometimes you get lucky randomly in life. And when you're lucky at random moments, you need to really be able to leverage those moments of luck, and I've thankfully been able to do that so far. So yeah, so a lot of stumbling, a lot of I'd say building on top of luck, and somewhere in between, I guess the fact that I am generally very random in the stuff which interests me has helped me, because I have a bizarre, unique set of information in my mind, so that seems to always work.
Yeah. So but like now when you start something new, does it feel like, oh, I'll only succeed if I get lucky, or do you think that, no, I'm gonna do this?
Not really. So I generally, okay, let me put it this way. There are a few sets of people who are close to me, and then in terms of what they say, there's one set who say that I underrepresent what my actual potential is, because I tend to be like, no, it's okay, I didn't do anything, I happened to come here. There's another set which says that I am not as cutthroat in trying to make this a true money making or a business enterprise. It's also partially true. The third set is that I genuinely enjoy the fact that I'm not point A and point B, right? So and I don't necessarily subscribe to any of those. I just feel that I've never been one who likes to make things seem like I'm genuinely love myself, which is everybody should. But I don't necessarily want to tell the world that you need to love me and I'm so awesome and all that stuff. I genuinely, it's not me to say that. So that's why I stay away from that part of it. I'm also not cutthroat, because I kind of feel like if you have a long-term point of view about what you want your legacy to kind of be, short-term gains don't necessarily matter. You just look at long-term, what you're going to get out, and this stuff compounds. So that's how I look at it. And luck's played a part, because I mean, everything from how I got into college to how I even ended up at an MTV, to how even Glitch started off, how it scaled up, even like the clients we got, all that stuff. I feel life gives you opportunities, right? I think that we use the word luck as if it's something that is that has no effort behind it. I feel that life gives you opportunities. But if you look at those opportunities and you're like, okay, this is a great opportunity, and this could be a way for me to truly leverage it, to truly grow from it. I feel that's really where we don't like. I don't think we give that enough importance, because you might work as hard as anybody else, but if you don't leverage the right points, then you might not scale up like the others do.
Yeah, obviously you need to know where to double up on stuff. You certainly need to know where to, go less a bit, because it's not a one-on-one relationship with what you do to what happens, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you do 50 and 50 happens, you do 50, 50 happens, you do 50, 100 happens. Then you need to go to 100, or else the 50s, it's going to go back to 50 and maybe even less. So, and sometimes you do 50, you get 25, but you still got to keep doing the 50. So have you had any incidents like that throughout your whole life? How old are you now?
I'm almost 40, so I'll be 40 next August. This August, I'm hitting my last year in my 30s, so I'll be 40 next August.
You look pretty
getting
young.
to the big 4.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty young. I mean, is that because you are on the internet a lot, or are you very tech savvy and can catch fishy really easily?
So the funny part is that I think my generation, and I call it my generation because we're a unique entity, right? I was born the year color television came to India. So that's like how far back I was born. Like if you think about color television and look at where we are today, that seems like an ancient thing. But what's fun for me is that I've always been generally curious. Right? I love to learn. Like I said, learning is a strong thing for me. So, but I think learning has always been connected to education. I don't think education is really the point. So you like to learn enough things about the world around you. It makes you makes you more interesting to people, makes you more interesting to yourself. So I've experienced a truly analog world, and I've always been excited by anything which is truly digital. Always been a huge pop culture fan. Always been like, I like random, like I will sit and talk to you for an hour about the Eternals and Marvel. And I can also sit and talk to you about, how like psychologically the 1.5 years of lockdown might have just changed how we are rewired as people, right? So I want to be able to have that conversation, both of those, which makes it as much fun for me as the person I'm talking to. And somehow I think that's why what is clued in, I'm a little more clued in because I genuinely enjoy consuming this stuff. The only thing which I have not been able to wrap my head around, and because I think I'm generally very bad at numbers, is I don't get crypto. I have tried. I'm giving up. What is crypto? What is NFT? I've just got the basics of how they function. But some things I just give up on. I'm like neogams. I'm like I'll maybe try in a year or so.
ये ज़्यादा हो गया वो अब वापस कलर television वाले हूँ मैं तो.
So bad with numbers.
You never liked maths then?
I did engineering, weirdly enough. So I've never been good at maths. Always did well. So that's a weird part. And I have my own I say grouses with education, because I feel that you connect things which might not necessarily have to be connected. So I always loved to code when I was a kid, like till my school, early college, like even like high school, everything else. But to get into engineering, you also need to be good at math, which I never was. But I could code really well. And somehow engineering killed my entire love for coding. Haven't coded since I started my first year of engineering in 2000. And I feel that's the whole thing, is that at some point I wish those were separate things. I might just be doing a lot more code right now if that was true. And I think that's really those are kind of stuff which I kind of think about a lot. I'm like, okay, why do those have to be connected? Is that even required?
Yeah, even me, like for me, I did science in 11th and 12th, but then I shifted to liberal arts because for me, I wasn't good at physics and chemistry. I was fairly good at math, but I didn't like the engineering thing that much. And I saw that I was interested in something else. So I was like, no, let's switch it up. So that was quite a journey for me. But yeah, I want to get into coding. So recently I've been trying to, delegate some of my work around these so that I can get into coding. I think code is, a very, it's fun. It's something new. And as you said, it keeps you more clued into what's happening. So
100%.
Maybe if you were doing coding, I think you would have made your own crypto.
Because coding teaches you what is below the surface of right now. If you look at everything that that surrounds our life, that makes our life function. And even if you understand the basic logic of how code functions and how you look at an algo and stuff like that, I mean, this is stuff I haven't revisited in a long time, but it's something which I think about sometimes. I'm like, in a weird way, on one end, I love to read about stoicism. On the other end, I want to read stuff which talks about the future and where things are really going. So I think it's a good bridge to have in your head.
You're a really unbound generalist. I mean,
I've totally, literally, like I have this book called Range, which talks about journalists and specialists.
I've read
Literally
that,
on my desk right now. Just when you said that, I looked around and the book's right there.
Yeah. So yeah, I've read that book. I mean, some parts of it, I like it.
Yeah.
So you've been podcasting since a long time now, and now we're getting into something called social audio. It's been through the lockdown that we've discovered social audio with things like Clubhouse and Avalon Scenes. And now that Clubhouse is on Android. So somebody asked me the other day, as I told you, that is Clubhouse going to kill podcasts? What do you think? Like my instinctive response, as I told you, was no, because I have a hypothesis as to why, but I want to listen to you from you. What do you think? Why does...
So I think certain kinds of podcasts can easily graduate to Clubhouse, but I don't think it will kill podcasts at all. I feel that it's very complementary, right? If you are a certain kind of podcast host, you'll do really well on a Clubhouse or a Twitter Spaces. So let me give you an example. Think about live sports podcasts. Very easily transition to Clubhouse. But if you're doing a deep conversational one, which requires there's a vibe to certain podcasts, right? When you feel like you're sitting in a room, just the two of you having this conversation, and that's why it goes into directions, right? So, and I've never been a person who does a long episode. I've been on some long ones. I was on Amit Verma's podcast, and we recorded for about 3 hours when we spoke, right? So, and that was so long because it was at night, just him and me, and just genuinely had a freewheeling long discussion about so many topics. Would we have as deep a conversation if it was in the middle of a Clubhouse room? I don't think so, because you will at some point realize there are more people. You will have some dings happening. You'll have, all that stuff going on. And I don't think it works for the audience as well, because people don't tune into social audio to not participate. They want to be there so they can do something about it. So AMA episodes very easily move there. Conversation episodes, which require you to have audience participation, really works there. There are a few people who do quiz podcasts. Again, easy transition to this. So depending on how interactive you want your show to be, you can transition it. But I think largely for a huge category of the podcast space, you can actually use it as a very smart promotion mechanism. Like imagine if I have a fiction podcast and if I do a after episode release Clubhouse room where I'm discussing what happened in the episode. That's a great, like, it's almost like an after show, right? You can do so many of those things. And it's also a lot more massy. The more random a Clubhouse room is, the more fun it is, because people just generally want to come and I don't think they all want to be a part of a panel discussion. And I feel that's the problem. I think Suchita from LBB tweeted the other day and she was like, so basically Clubhouse is just panel discussions in an app. And I was like, it can become that if people aren't careful, but I think people are having a lot of fun.
So like what from my hypothesis was that, as you said, I just I got this from you, that a huge part of podcasts, a large number of podcasts can transfer to that. I also think that people who are already in the podcasting or the public speaking space since a long time, let's say intellectuals like Peterson, Weinstein brothers, someone like a Joe Rogan, obviously is not going there, but people like that who are generally very good with conversations first. And the second thing, that they have something that is going on. Like they can just come on into a Clubhouse room when they are free and just talk about anything and, go. So someone like a Jordan Peterson, he can easily transfer, he can easily call any guest for that matter. He does not need to have them have a camera or a microphone that's of a very good quality. You can just call him up. He can just talk. They can say some stuff that they might not be able to, say on a pre-recorded one. And because they are people like that, they have their kind of audience. That audience is there to stay. That audience is there to listen to them. So I think those people can really transition. But I think people like me, people like budding podcasters, as you said, we need, I don't know, we need some confidence as well. We need to be we need to know that, okay, we are sitting in this room I'm sitting now in this room just with Varun, so that I can talk to him about stuff that I want to talk to him about. And there's no pressure on me for having to look at this many amount of people and having them stay, because the biggest problem I see with people being live is that, oh, my live watching should not, like, it should not die.
You want to keep that you want to keep that activity level so high, right? And the beauty of a good podcast is that it will have highs and have its lows, it will have its silences, and that's what makes it a lot more fun. Is that even if you're doing it solo, you want to have that pause, you want to be able to, you need to basically speak at the pace of Obama, but nobody can speak at the pace of Obama. But I think that's the way to do it.
So I mean, also a lot of these podcasts are just for me. I mean, just for the host. Like, for me, there are a lot of podcasts I do just because I want to do them for myself, so that I can look back at my work, because it's also proof of work. So So now, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, first of all, do you have any other thoughts about Clubhouse? What do you think with Clubhouse do?
So my worry with Clubhouse versus Twitter Spaces and everything else that's coming is that everybody else can add it as a feature. I mean, so Snapchat figured a way to still stay relevant to an extent, right? Because stories was what it had and it went everywhere. Clubhouse has that problem. It's as of now, it's a one-trick pony. Like, there's only one thing you can do on Clubhouse. Let's say I log in and I don't find, like, I remember when I logged in when it was only iOS, and I didn't go back that often because there wasn't enough content for me to consume. Right, a lot of it was American. Again, like, not the kind of stuff which I would generally relate to. It was very focused on an American audience. But now, obviously, with like what they've added 2.5 million new subscribers because of Android, and 1 million out of that is from India, right? So massive surge of just India only content coming in, but they need to sustain it. And I feel the big problem they're going to have is you almost need creators who are creating recurring properties where you will come back to it. Will you come back every Wednesday evening for someone's show? Will you come back every Monday morning for someone's show? So some of those pieces. And what happens when Twitter's launched theirs, Instagram is going to have their live rooms, which is their audio version coming out. Spotify is going to launch, not launch, they're basically transitioning Locker Room, which is an app they acquired, into the Spotify platform as well. So now everybody will have a Clubhouse. And at some point, and this is a question I've asked myself, right? Do I double down on Clubhouse, which is a new platform, or do I just stick to the fact that, okay, I have a reasonable following on Twitter, I have a generally scaling up audience on Instagram, do I focus on these? Do I want to give that much time to this? Will it even last that long? Is a question a lot of creators are asking themselves. So what is Clubhouse going to do to make sure that there is more happening there without taking away the essence of it? Like, they shouldn't become an Instagram. But if we're only going to do this, how is it going to be scalable in the long term is a question which I have in my head. And I'm still not 100% sold on it, but my curiosity has increased in recent months.
Like, my biggest problem with Clubhouse is that I cannot go and be serious on there. I don't know. It's just that. I mean, when I'm on call with somebody, like just the two of us, I start off pretty casual, and then we might just get, anywhere from, serious to philosophical. But, when I'm in a room with many people, I don't think I can be serious for more than 5 minutes. So I don't know. It's just
because the tendency is to be random, right? And the people are trying random stuff on it. No one's trying to do. There are a few people trying to do serious discussions, but again, there the crowd isn't very large when they're serious for too long. And the other thing also is, who said this to me? Someone said this to me very recently, and I'm forgetting who said this to me. I think it was on Clubhouse only. Or it was on a panel which I was at. Say that Clubhouse is the heights of social strata, right? You're saying speakers and hosts have all the power; they're on top. You go down, friends of speakers are there. Then you're Janta, right? It's almost like you've categorized people in that sense. So in that sense, it's really become this benchmark saying, okay, this person follows me, so it's why I've moved up from being everybody else to being friends of speakers. So I need to figure a way to connect to them. So there is some, I don't know what connotation that will have just from a mindset perspective. And people are already talking about getting mentally exhausted by spending too much time on Clubhouse, right? People are always saying, okay, there's something as too much Clubhouse. I don't think there's something called too much podcast, because podcasts are soothing to your mind.
Yeah.
Clubhouse still, and all of them are just driving a lot of audio, and which is like high energy audio in many ways. Not high energy, but just like the activity is a lot louder in that sense into your head.
Yeah.
So you get exhausted faster. So will it have, I mean, in the long term, will it have as much engagement as your 2 hour long podcast might have? I don't know. But I mean, it's the difference between YouTube and Netflix for me. You can where Netflix is where podcasts will reside, and where YouTube is where Clubhouse will reside. Is what I feel.
Yeah. When you said the social strata thing, I was like, yes, I relate, because once I don't know, I don't know. So once I was in this Clubhouse room, it was I think midnight, and we were just joking around, and I asked this guy, like, again, I wasn't speaking much, but then I spoke. I made a couple jokes, and I was at this guy, and he moved me to the audience for no good reason. He's like, "Jatu," and there I felt I felt offended. I'm like, what? How can you do that? I mean, so and everyone else was my friend,
and
so
for a
they were like,
host, you
"Why
worry,
would
right?
do that?"
You worry about, so because I've had scenarios where I'm hosting or I'm one of the speakers, and you know that you're opening up for people to give their points of view, and someone is taking much longer than they need to, and taking away time from others, and you want to bump them off. But so I have literally bumped someone off. And I think this happened on Twitter Spaces. It didn't happen on Clubhouse. But I bumped someone off, and then I DM'd them separately saying, "Sorry, I had to bump you off because you have to move to the next person, and we want to put time constraints." So it's almost a different way of figuring out how to build and maintain relationships in a totally different, like it's
because there's no DM on Clubhouse. There's no DM on Clubhouse.
So then I did on Twitter then.
Yeah, people can say something else, and I can interpret it in a very different context and from a very different image of them. And it's like, I don't know, it's the chai ki tapri that we all miss because of the lockdown. So I think that analogy fits perfectly.
One great way that it's actually leveraged is musicians. I think musicians are using it really well. I think it's a great spot to do a stand-up piece. If you want to be a stand-up comedian, but you're worried about showing your face, great ways to do. Like, imagine if I can just log in and someone's doing stand-up, and if someone can crack that really well, and I'm sure somebody already has. I haven't listened to one yet, but I was just thinking the other day, music makes sense because I have logged in. One of my favorite Clubhouse rooms is this guy who plays ambient lo-fi music all day long. So if I can't find something to play, I'll just literally log into that Clubhouse room and I will let that play on the side. It's just nice music to have in the background, right? So all that stuff is going to scale up. Like yoga meditations happening. You're going to have music performances, stand up. So a lot of live pieces are transitioning here.
Yeah, totally agree on that. And also, shoot your shot would still continue. I mean,
shoot your shot is, I feel, a very okay. There used to be a concept called speed dating even before my time, where people would have to sit around the place, call to an auditorium, and then you would have a few seconds to talk to someone and move ahead. I feel that the formats don't change, just that how we use them really evolves based on the platforms, right? So you've taken a very analog, old school, let's get everybody together for college socials format and made that shoot your shot. I think that's the only thing.
We need to talk about sex. So, let's, I don't know, obviously we cannot directly talk about it. We cannot directly say that, do you like this person or you? Let's gamify all of that. All of that and put different.
Interactive, right? It's so interactive. That's why people are engaged with it. If it was very standard, if it was, if it didn't have that level of activity, people wouldn't enjoy it as much.
Yeah. So I think my perfect Clubhouse thing would be just go on there, chill, and play with friends. I mean, I just go on there to chill, like pass some time whenever I'm bored with work or something like that. I just log on to it. I know there are 6 of my friends who are always there on Clubhouse, or always making people play games and saying, guys, follow the mods. So that's that's the share, subscribe of Clubhouse. Just follow the mods. So I know that they're playing games, and I just go in, I just play with them for a bit and just come out. So with podcasting, we recently saw something big in India. The Ranveer show was bought by Spotify as a Spotify exclusive. And when that happened with Joe Rogan, it was quite understandable, because Joe Rogan has been in this place for 11 years now. He has an audience that is worldwide, and
Mm.
it was only about time to Spotify bought him. But the Ranveer show, it's been around for a couple of years now, and
Mm.
it's largely audience in India. But Spotify
Yeah.
still went ahead and bought that. I don't know what price they bought it for,
Yeah.
but from what I know, like I was talking to somebody who's in touch with the guy, so like per episode, these
Mm.
guys are getting somewhere around 2 to 5 lakhs. I don't know. This is an
Mm.
arbitrary figure, maybe, but
Mm.
that's the thing. So what I see is the podcast trend is really catching up.
Yeah. Yeah.
What drives this in the country?
So I put it in a few ways, right? And I feel that the Joe Rogan deal and the Ranveer deal differ in a few ways, which is important to talk about. Joe Rogan's deal was literally move everything out of YouTube and move entirely to Spotify. Right? Even his like entire full video episodes, everything else.
Yeah.
Right? Ranveer's sticking to keeping his videos on YouTube. So if I look at Ranveer's audience and how he became a podcaster, Ranveer started off as a YouTuber and became a podcaster, and I think that's a whole different set of podcasters who realized that as YouTubers, your tendency was to do shorter videos and build an audience with that. But by having podcasts, YouTubers were able to build. I mean, can't believe I'm quoting Gary Vee. To quote Gary Vee's term, they're building a foundational piece of content for themselves, which is their that one long form piece of content, and from that you can get multiple pieces out there. So you almost build yourself that way. If you look at some of the even like how your Logan Paul and Jake Paul and all that have been able to do that in the US, everybody's moved to that podcast, gives them that one big piece of content, and they can have conversations which become smaller pieces of content. So I think Ranveer's figured a smart way to keep that YouTube audience and not compromise them in any way. But I feel audio is eventually going to. So you're going to have a few categories of podcasts. You're going to have one category, which is people who are creating podcasts because they just genuinely want to. They want to use it the way they have an Instagram account, they have a podcast, and they want to put content out there. I do an audio blog format podcast every week, but I just do that because I just want to put out stuff I'm learning, and I have no plans to do anything else with it. And that's one category. Second category are people who are trying to figure a way to monetize it on a consistent basis. And they want to do that through brands and ads and everything else. But what platforms are realizing is that the way for Spotify to scale, and the reason why Spotify even got into the podcast game, is that IP is going to be a strong thing for all these platforms, right? So Apple's going to have their originals, Amazon has their originals, Spotify will have theirs. So everybody's going to have shows which are exclusive to them. And why does it work for the platform is that it's exclusive here, and this person A could have a large audience or already has a large audience. So if you sanction it from scratch, like so, if I think of arguably the best cricket podcast in the country, which is Gaurav's podcast, that was sanctioned by Spotify. He made it for them. It wasn't available anywhere else ever. Always been on Spotify only. That's one way. You go to someone credible and you build it with them.
Yeah.
The other kind, or a Mantra doing Bhaskar Bose in that sense. On the other side, you have a Ranveer say, okay, Ranveer really built his podcast in this space from an audio only perspective. Even if he transitions his podcast here, Ranveer will still be a win for him, because I think his largest audience does reside on Spotify. I think for a lot of us, we look at Spotify as one of those prime spots where a lot of our audience lies, and he's been able to balance it out. So I think I wouldn't compare it to the Joe Rogan movement, but I think it's a great signal to say that we're fast moving from I want to come up with an idea and sell it to a platform, to saying I will build a podcast large enough that a platform wants to acquire me. And I think the acquiring part is now really going to grow, and everyone's going to say, okay, can I double down on my podcast and scale it up large enough that somebody will want to acquire me? And the chances of you making more money are far higher if you're acquired versus if you're sanctioned. And in many cases, if you're acquired, you might not even give up your IP. I don't know about the deal, but if the YouTube part stays, then he hasn't necessarily given up all his IP, because that's pretty much what he does.
I don't think even Joe Rogan has given up the IP, because his clips still go up on YouTube.
Yeah, a lot of people do though. If you're sanctioning the podcast, if on day one a platform has given you money to build a show for you for them, the IP generally rests with them. So the difference between acquired versus you scaling it up, the difference between a podcast that is sanctioned by a platform to something that's acquired is that you hold the IP as well. So you make a lot, you tend to gain a lot more in the long term. As long as the show stays large, you can actually make more and more in the years to come. Whereas if they sanction it, then it depends on the season and stuff like that. So I think that's fundamental difference. But podcasts are huge in India. There is no doubting that. Once we went to multiple languages, once we are taking it to different categories like fiction and crime and everything else, I feel news is so undertapped, and there's so much more you can do with news in India with podcasts. So I think we're just starting off. This is going to be huge, and everyone's figured a way to be multi-platform where you're not just doing audio. You are figuring a way to leverage text. You can leverage video, and so all podcasters are they're going to be across the board.
Yeah. So, that's the thing now, because you see, when like this was something that I recently also realized, that with podcasts you're building a very intimate audience. I think you said that in the Tag Mango session as well. So when I recently also started to host a podcast for my college, for a college's newsletter. So when they asked me that what good it would do to us, I was like, with podcasts you're building a very loyal, very intimate audience, because I, for instance, can imagine me listening to somebody like me talking for an hour. Generally, not so much. I mean, I would generally tend to listen to someone who's a lot more credible. But if there are people coming to listen to me, then I would then that's something big for me. I mean, these guys are letting me in on their head for an hour or so, and that's something that's not a joke. I mean, that's something even you would have noticed, because
you'll also listen to someone who you relate to, right? I feel that many times we give too much credit to saying, okay, this person is like a famous person, or some person has larger credibility in like experience in the space. That's why they listen to them. I feel if you relate to someone as being, okay, this person very similar to me and they've done something, let me just listen to it, is our natural tendency. And I feel sometimes we don't focus on that enough.
That's why you see a lot of Ranveer's podcasts where like आपके भाई ने ऐसा भी किया था, or so that he can come off as relatable. I think that's why Joe Rogan as well works the most, because he's not the most intelligent guy out there, but
not at all.
Yeah, but he's the average Joe. He's there sitting asking Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's an average Joe who's smart enough to know how to really pull conversations along.
Yeah.
And he's built systems in the podcast which take care of his lack of knowing things. So when he doesn't know something, he'll ask the crew in his thing to pull something up on the screen, right? He'll make them Google it, make them look it up. So it's a very smart mechanism to have to say, okay, I don't know, let's just Google it and figure out what's there, or let's pull up that article. So and that really works, right? It's fabulous. So he doesn't have to know everything, and in many cases I feel that a lot of podcasters feel the pressure to actually have enough information and not seem like they don't know. That's a very smart hack to know yet.
Yeah, and like even after being like 11 years into the space, he still tells that I'm a stand-up comedian now. So don't take me seriously, like sitting there and talking about physics and astrophysics and stuff. I'm a stand-up comedian. Tell me about aliens. So I think podcasting helps you also make I think as I can ask anything to you, because as I said, this is something that I like to ask a lot of professionals turned content creators. So you were, as I said, an accidental entrepreneur before, right? So when you transition to content, what's the difference that you see in your life? I mean, because generally you've been accessible behind maybe a paywall to your customers, employees, and investors. But now that you're creating content, everyone has a line of direct access to you. What do you?
I think the biggest change has honestly been the fact that, and I honestly got back to something which I genuinely missed doing, and I didn't realize how much I missed it, is that actually doing stuff yourself. At some point, as you scale companies, as you build businesses, you tend to focus a lot of your time and energy on people, on operations, and a lot of other stuff which business leaders need to look after, and not really focus on and not really do the work, because generally you have people you hire over time who take care of that, and your responsibilities require you to move away from being day to day on the actual creation process. So what I really enjoy is being a part of the creation process. and also in some way, I feel that I speak so much to, I wouldn't just say young people. I think people who have questions, I just try to address them, and I feel that really helps me as well. It helps me address questions I have in my own mind. So, I recently was on Clubhouse and I did a Q&A that went on almost, I think, an hour and a half, and a lot of the answers a lot of the questions I was asked made me think of answers which gave me clarity as well. So I feel being a podcaster, being a creator, gives you a lot of clarity about yourself and your own, your own perspectives on things. Because there's this thing I read recently, which I was quite fascinated by, is that our brain absorbs stuff that is information that is given to it and not thought to it. So if you say something aloud, your brain will absorb it faster than if you just think about it in your head. So I found that fascinating. So all podcast hosts, as they speak throughout the time, are in some ways teaching their own brain stuff.
Because
rather than just
we
saying
learn
in their
through
head.
action, right? We learn through mimetic action, and the words are the precursors to action. So if you do something, then you learn the most. If you talk about something, or if you write something down, that's another level of understanding. But if you just consume the thing, or you just think about it, that's the least level of learning. Because this is something also I've realized over the year. So for me, this past year has been everything about experimenting. So whether it be experimenting with podcast, experimenting with editing videos, running startups, building teams, anything like that. So what I do is I jump into it first. I'm like, एक रात पहले ख्याल आया कि podcast करना है, ठीक है सिद्धांश, podcast करना है, get your guest. So like my first 2 episodes, first of all they were audio only, and I didn't even realize that I have a very bad Wi-Fi. So there are like static noises in them, very really bad static noises. But I was like, I just want to do it, man. Let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
So and then from there, I think I learned the most, because even when I started, right, up till now, I almost do everything myself. Recording, editing, designing, everything. Because I'm also the guy. I'm also kind of guy who likes to be presentable on all platforms. So let's just say I'm making a YouTube video. So the podcast should look like a very good video podcast. It should sound good on audio, and it should be optimized for my Instagram pages as well. So I do all of that. So I think I learned most in that. And people are like, yes, social media management course I'm doing, or video editing course, where should I do? So even one of my friends, they're like, Siddhansh, what video editing course should I do? I'm like, open your editor, pick up a project, pick first of all what you want to do, and then
and go to YouTube.
Learn as you go. Like if you want to know how to put up a title, just go on YouTube, search how to put up a title in this software, and then go along. So that's what I did.
So I've actually had a weird transition, right? So I used to edit a lot in my early days. Although I used to edit on a software called Avid, which isn't used as much in the broader sense. You use a lot more for movies still, I feel. But in the basics of Final Cut Pro, etc., is still there, and I could always do that. So I remember last year when I started one of my podcasts, I was trying to edit it the way I would always edit it. But what I've actually found of recent times is you can also find interesting hacks to do these things. So I'd like to now add my solo episodes, for instance, are a one take start to end, so it doesn't need any edit. I realized that Anchor can add music and it auto levels it down, so I don't have to level my audio there. I use InShot a lot to edit videos because I find it so convenient to do that on my phone. So I've very weirdly decided I will not use professional tools. I will download all these apps, everything else. Like I use a Dolby app called Dolby On, which is fabulous for audio recording, including solo, especially because and Dolby's made is free. It basically what it does is it takes off your background noise, auto levels your voice, and makes it sound. You can actually level it out. You can do so much with it, and you do it all off your phone and phone or whatever you want to use. So I've actually been looking around and finding these tools. Like I'm just started to use something called Soundtrap, which is audio editing software that Spotify recently acquired. I can do it in your browser, I think is how you do it. So I'm just trying to figure out some of these things and see what these tools might be like, because maybe just for me, that fact that professional tools are always something which I had in front of me, and these seem a little more exciting for me to try because it just feels like, okay, this is a whole different experience.
Yeah, it's really more fulfilling, right, when you do everything yourself. Because now that So now that I recently have got a team who does the edits for me, it's good. It's good. I like that. That I can be
I'm
at a
so happy
weekend
to give away
getaway.
edits. I'm
But
happy
yeah,
to not do edits.
yeah. I also like that. I can be at a weekend getaway, but still be my stuff has been posting. Like I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and I've been like posting consistently on my Instagram. And I told him, भाई अगर if I wouldn't have got an editor ना, तो मैं या तो अपनी जिंदगी जीना छोड़ चुका होता या तो Instagram छोड़ चुका होता. So it's fine, but once that you do everything yourself, it's kind of fulfilling, right? Because you know that, oh, yeah,
100%.
and that. Because I make the trailers
sure.
still myself, so it's that. Okay, cool. So let me ask you a very blanket question. What do you think is the future of podcasting in India? I mean, right now we haven't even got into podcasting a lot, but what's for in India to come for podcasting?
I think the future is going to be a lot of fiction. I feel fiction is very underserved right now. I think fiction is going to really scale up, and it will drive a certain aspect which we haven't had happen in India yet. Is that they will have fiction podcasts get acquired by streaming platforms to be converted into actual shows. I see that happening. It happened in the West, and I'm sure it's going to happen here. You're also going to have. You already see it. Sports is scaling up a lot in the podcast space. Sports discussion podcasts. I'm very bullish on sports really scaling up because I think that it's a massive opportunity to kind of build communities. Right? There's nothing like a sports community to build. And I feel this whole paid subscription piece that's kind of coming in, where you can actually give people bonus content. That's going to help a lot of podcasters not worry about, I need to be in like the top 10 in the charts, or I need to have millions of listens. And you don't need all of that. You need a captive audience. You need a focused audience who might want to pay for extra content. And I think that refocusing will really help. I think especially in India, it's just going to make it simpler for more podcasters to do this, because it's a easy entry, right? The entry gateway for podcasts is quite low right now, just in terms of what you need as infrastructure. So I think that will really make it scale up. And regional is going to be massive. Like I've considered doing a Telugu podcast many times. I just generally don't think I have the bandwidth, but I really want to do one. I have a few ideas as well, which I thought would be easier to do, more on the solo side of things. But regionals again going to bring out some very interesting ones, because India is and actually has always been an audio first country. Audio has actually been a core part of how we are. It's sad we haven't had talk radio.
Even the oldest civilization, like the Indic civilization, all of our texts are recited. So we've always been an audio.
Yeah, we're very audio friendly as a country, as an audience.
So even like that's what happens, because we like to talk, we like to gossip. ऐसे घर में बैठे रहते हैं, फिर जब मेहमान बाहर भी जाते हैं, बाहर भी 15 मिनट की कॉन्वर्सेशन होती है.
I'm sure there are enough gossip clubhouse rooms now.
Yeah, we're serving the tea. Yeah. Also, I feel, as you said, that a lot of podcasts might not just need a lot of listens. I think, and the subscription model could come. I think that also preserves the essence of podcasting. Because if you look at podcasting, especially conversation level non-fiction, they depend on unfiltered, raw, unreal conversations. And as you go and scale up, you might just not be able to talk about stuff that is politically incorrect. So a good example that comes to my mind is the Charvak podcast by Kushal Mehra. So what that guy has done is he does all live podcasts, and he asks his audience to send his questions on Super Chat. So his podcast stays sustainable. His podcast has an audience that pays him money to ask him questions, and he does not need to worry about how massy does this have to go. So
it's like, think about it. Someone the other day was telling me that what are the other ways you could do it? And I was saying that, imagine if you have a really popular podcast and people had the opportunity to almost like book us. We're doing this off Zoom right now. Imagine if you could be in the audience here with your camera off, and you could just listen to this while it's live and be able to ask a few questions. And especially if your audience has their cameras off and their mics off, you after a point don't realize it. So it will still retain the essence of the podcast, but people are almost paying to be a part of the experience of it, right? Actually listening and watching this live rather than at a later time. So And you can build so much more with it. I love the Superfan idea though. It's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, if anyone of you needs to be here, no to DM. Okay, so I think I've kept you on for a long time now. You said you like short, but I kept you on for
No,
an
it's
hour.
okay. 1 hour is a good amount of time.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to ask or say?
So just rounding off the whole podcast thing, right? Is that if someone wants to be a podcaster, you need to very early on decide what kind of a podcaster you want to be. And I'd say that across two levels. One is that are you a video first podcaster or an audio first podcaster? A lot of people confuse YouTubers with podcasters because a lot of YouTubers have become podcasters. But if you're audio first, the kind of stuff you do, the way you are, you won't necessarily even care about the camera most times. You just be how you are being, right? And there is no good or bad in either side. Just that you need to make that decision, and it also then brings out how you format your show, how unedited it is, how raw it is. All that stuff plays into video versus audio first in your head. And secondly, I feel that not everybody has to sound like an expert to a podcast. I think we even feel that pressure. It's far easier to be the person who's saying, "I'm just here to learn. I'm just here to understand." Best place to be. You can seem like you just landed up here and have to ask a person questions. So your questions might worry. Some people worry about, okay, are my questions going to seem intelligent enough? Are they going to be this? No. As long as they drive the conversation, they're great questions to ask. So I mean that would be my 2 cents at the end of this.
Yeah. Also, I've been noticing this since the beginning. You and I are wearing the same glasses. So
good call, man. Good call.
Yeah. So it was great for me. How do you like it? Well, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well. It's nice. It's freewheeling, but I also like the fact that we went to such different areas and we picked up so many topics. I always enjoy a conversation where I'm having to think about speaking about stuff which I haven't been asked before. This is what I enjoyed about this. So yeah, totally fun.
And as you said, you can talk about anything. So
yeah,
I think I'm going to call you again soon if if needed.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah,
I might delay from time to time, but I will do it.
Great. So I'll think. Okay, I need to call Varun for maybe the next. Okay, I'll text him now. Great. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you later.
Yeah.